Now, Nic Olsen, a South African singer-songwriter, is the man behind SonOfOld, and he rose to prominence as one of the frontmen for the early 2000s alternative rock band PEREZ, and he now joins us on the line. Good morning, Nic. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you.
Nic, I saw an interview you did in, I think it was October of 2020, and at that stage, it was like 2 years since you had done any gigging. Have you started gigging since then, at least?
Yeah, I think I played a few shows, mainly support shows. I played in Johannesburg a few times, but as you can imagine, it was rather difficult to plan anything. Yeah, so I'm hoping to play more SonOfOld gigs. And to get out a bit more now, but it seems that a lot of artists are trying to satisfy the thirst for gigs at the same time, and I think probably many more that are more successful than I am, so it's quite a scramble for gigs at the moment.
I can imagine. Curious question, are you a Pearl Jam fan?
Pearl Jam?
Yeah.
I was in my youth. I mean, I wouldn't say I would go and watch them now, but I enjoyed their album Vitology. I think it was called, when I was younger. And of course, 10 I know very well from when I was young. Yeah. So. And music always, you never really know how it influences you. But I'm interested. Why do you ask?
I'm asking, you know what, when I saw the previous album cover, SonOfOld, the one that was advertised on the internet, the picture, it reminded me a lot of the Vitology album cover. And that's why I'm asking. I was wondering if by some chance that was subconsciously influenced.
No, it was quite strange. I gave the designer a very opaque brief as to what I wanted. I literally gave him a picture of a tiny tablet and my finger close up, which looked pretty absurd. And I think it became the Ataman cover of one of the singles. Mm-hmm. And it was on this desk that had kind of a leather look about it. It was blue, I think. And I think he just ran with it, and it landed up. And I agree with you, especially the gold and the black.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that was the color, if I remember correctly, for that album. It had that kind of look.
It's awesome. Tell me, the name SonOfOld, where does that come from?
My initial idea for it was, it started off as a solo project completely, where I was just recording myself at home at a home studio, I kind of had heard that a lot of the Nordic names, our surname is Olsen, was kind of, but the sin had to do with son, so it was the son of Ule is what it was. Mm-hmm. So I thought I'd kind of mess with that a bit, and SonOfOld seemed to be kind of something that it just rang well, and I think it also kind of, I started very young in music, and and that was in 2008 when I started, like a long time ago now. But it's I'm kind of growing well into the name, as I get older.
No, man. I know the name when I heard it for the first time, it just stuck out. It's just one of those names. It just sticks with you. It's a really, really cool band name. And yeah, so I was curious about where that comes from.
Yeah. So that's kind of the story behind it, really. I haven't actually interrogated my Danish family enough as to whether my assumptions were correct, and I'm not quite sure where I got that information, because I don't actually speak Danish at all. So I probably have to back that one up if it's actually correct.
It's your version. That's what matters.
It's my version.
It's
and,
your
when
version
you
of
get
the story.
older, you kind of forget where you hear stories, and you start to sometimes even manufacture your own truths.
Look, you are well known on the South African music scene as frontman for PEREZ, as a guy that wrote, a lot of, of the hit songs for the Parlotones. Before releasing Ataman in 2011. As your solo project on SonOfOld. But where did music start for you?
I think it started when I was going to kindergarten or pre-primary school. I remember my parents loved to listen to music, and they had a record player, and I had free reign over listening to everything that was there. And I was really addicted to the Hollies and all their hits, like songs like Carrie Ann and Bus Stop, and I really loved harmonies and melody, and that was really what excited me. And then and then I kind of did traditional things, particularly, I mean, that was in the 80s. So, music was largely classical training, so I started that pretty young. I played violin and piano, but it never really took off for me because I preferred to play music by ear, really, and I wasn't disciplined enough to, actually engage in music as a classical musician. And then I think in the 90s, what drew a lot of people into music was realizing that these virtuoso players, at that time at least, it wasn't a necessary requirement, and songs became kind of the strength. And I think particularly in the 90s, not that there were not good songs in the 80s, of course, great songs all the time. There've always been good songs, but somehow that you could have a non-traditional singing voice and have a career. And I kind of always saw myself as someone that didn't have a traditional singing voice. So yeah, I think that's kind of what got me into bands and playing music, and then I just really didn't stop.
Now, you spend quite a bit of time in Europe on the music scene. How did you find the scene over there, and what were some of the challenges you had to deal with over there?
So I was based in Germany and in Munich in particular. It was a bit of a challenge in the beginning to find musicians, but very quickly I managed to get. I was actually quite lucky because Munich has a pretty small scene, and there was a very famous club there which every artist you can think of has played, called Atomic Cafe, and I managed to get in with the people there and the crew there and the different musicians there, and slowly managed to kind of rise up there, and I got a good booking agent, and I really got to support some great artists and play some great gigs. The challenges were, of course, that your competition for gigs and all that is with the rest of the world. It's not just Munich. So, because every band would come through southern Germany, it's a very wealthy part of Germany. So, they have great concerts all the time. So it was quite difficult to take off as an artist in one's own right. But it was great to be able to support so many artists and get to know so many artists that were from the UK or Canada or America, and kind of hopping along their little journey. That was quite nice. Looking back, I mean, there was nice radio support there as well. There's quite a healthy radio environment in Germany. It's still quite strong. So people, of all ages listen to different radio stations, but they still listen. So that's quite nice, So yeah. It was a great time, and I do miss it, and I miss my friends there, and I really do have to get back there and play, actually, at some point.
You mentioned great radio support there. I'm curious, because we're not a commercial station, we're very much free to play most of what we like and what we want when it comes to the South African music. But do you guys find it difficult to get radio stations to play your music?
Yeah, look, I mean, I was very lucky, and maybe I had an unrealistic expectation of how radios react to music currently, because PEREZ had huge success when it was released. I mean, I think in 1 year, at a station like 5FM, we had 3 or 4 songs on the top 40 at the end of the year, so there was massive support. At that time, but I think, as society develops and tastes develop and stations want to rebrand themselves, I suppose. I feel that for a lot of rock music, it's kind of taken a bit of a backseat, which I think is most unfortunate for those artists that have never had any chance to be on radio. It's all very well for the, for Parlotones and Prime Circle and all those really big bands that have had, they've got fan bases and they're popular bands, they can pull a crowd wherever, really. And I think I haven't spoken to them, but I do get the impression that they're not getting the support they quite got years ago, just because of the way the stations have changed. So it is a bit of a pity, because I think rock music, I think it should transcend things like, the different groupings in society. It's something that speaks to a lot of people, and I hope that maybe they will. That the other stations might engage a bit more, but it does seem to be, support seems to be waning. That's my view, at least, maybe.
That's not good.
I'm trying to be very, very nice.
No, I understand. Don't worry. Tell me, when I look at your time that you've spent over the last few years, you've played with a lot of different bands. How has that influenced your music today, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's definitely made it more eclectic, and I kind of go all over the place with genres. I think SonOfOld has hardly, had a clear voice. It was an alternative acoustic kind of project initially, and then it went completely 90s when I did the Steve Albini record. And then the album I did then in 2020 was then a complete mix, like quite a mix of styles, but I think a little bit more commercial, I felt at least. Although a lot of people stated it as kind of an outdated sound, maybe, it was reminiscent of the past. And then, now with this new EP and these new songs, I kind of went with this title, Ghosts, for this new EP that's coming out in March, because it's kind of exactly that. It's the ghosts of the past. It's kind of like rock and roll music, how I hear it, and really unashamedly, what I like to hear. I'm not trying to fit into anything. But yeah, playing with different artists, of course, has an influence. And your environment has a big influence as well. So the sound has been rather diverse.
It has been. Look, you've got to. If a person had to look, you've got actually. If you had to put down a CV of music, you've got quite a remarkable resume with regards to music. Now, as a singer-songwriter, I'm sure if any sort of young aspiring guys were listening to you, how do you tackle the job of writing new music?
Yeah, I think. Really, I think the most important thing I've learned is that if you want to be a writer, a songwriter, you need to you need to take it like seriously enough that you can't afford to have writer's block in a way. You've got to churn out songs and write songs and just do the best you can and build on it. It's like, I find it can be as even an analogy to becoming running fit, for example. Initially it's painful and it can be not such fun, but the more you do something, the better you get at it. And I think some of the greatest songwriters might not have initially, or at least apparently, had as much musical talent, but when they started out, but they were able to write some of the most influential songs because it's just something they kept on doing. So I think it's got to be seen like that, maybe. I used to be a bit more esoteric about it, saying, the songs just came out of the air. And in a way, I suppose they do, but you're always influenced by your environment, But it's like a muscle. You need to keep working it in order to keep, to progress and to get better. And I think that's the most important thing, is to just keep writing.
You guys are essentially a two-man band. It's you and it's the drummer. So when you guys get into the studio, do you play all the instruments? Do you guys pull in session musos? How do you guys go about when you tackle the songs in the studio?
Yeah. So I write songs and I lay down everything. The drums, often I use samples just to get an idea of what I want it to sound like, and then I give it to Tom, and then Tom kind of produces it. We look at arrangements together. And then he plays the drums and everything, and I play all the instruments. On this latest recording, I did have someone come in and play some guitar. His name's Chris Xenopoulos. So he laid down some tracks. But kind of as a session player. He plays a lot better than I can. But that's kind of the process. I play the bass, pianos or keys and everything, and then Tom produces it as well. So he'll come up with other ideas, often some like sound effects or ambient sounds and stuff that kind of support the song. So it's a kind of a team effort in a way, really.
Tell me, you're talking about now this guy that came in to do the guitar work. There's definitely, and you mentioned the previous album, and some people said it was outdated. I don't agree with them. It had a throwback sound, which was really, really cool, and it was thoroughly enjoyable listening to that, to the music that came from the previous EP. But this EP that's coming out now goes from the 2 tracks that I've heard so far, sounds very different from what you did previously. Is that sort of a conscious thing that you said it must sound different? Or was it difficult to say, well, that worked, should I maybe just carry on with what worked? How did you come on doing a completely different sound on this album than what you maybe did on the previous one?
Yeah, I think the thing that I found difficult, and maybe I'm influenced by how music listening habits are and how the algorithms work online. But what I found difficult personally about promoting that previous album was that it was so diverse. I didn't know who to pitch which song to. If you were trying to get online blogs to write about it, or or people or playlisters. It was like a very, one song was in one direction, one was the other. And here I just wanted to try and get a more unified sound. So I kind of hung my hat with this release on the rock sound more. And when you hear the rest of the stuff, you will see it's quite clearly in that direction from a rock perspective. So at least I could tell people this is what I sound like, this is where I fit in, as opposed to being so diverse. And that's kind of also like why I called it Ghost. Rock music has always been a thing for me. But I mean, I love all sorts of different types of music, and different genres. So yeah, I mean, that was kind of the thought. And I suppose as well, on the previous record, Tom played kind of like, I wrote all the beats on the previous record, and I'm not a professional drummer, so Tom actually made sure it was all sounding good and played right. Whereas on this record now, Tom actually, that was up to him, so he had a big influence on the way the sound came across, and that might also, make it sound quite a lot more radical compared to the other albums.
You mentioned that this is more rock, and I want to ask, I noticed in in the 2020, you had this like nicely, cut blonde hair and this very neatly shaved beard, and you looked very Cape Townian, very nice and nicely dressed and stuff. And now I'm looking at the pictures for now, and you've got this dark look about you. Did you make the shift in look as you made the shift into rock music, or to this persona of rock as well? When you how did was it on purpose?
It's quite funny actually. Like you say, I look like someone from Cape Town. Now I've moved to Cape Town, I don't look like someone from Cape Town anymore. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think you hang around enough rock and rollers again, and that's kind of what I've been doing since 2020. With young bands and hardcore bands and people in different scenes, and I just kind of, So it was probably subconscious, and it is a little bit darker. I think, that first record there was still some sense of hope, I felt. And there was none of this what we've dealt with the last 2 years.
Exactly.
And maybe that darkness has kind of crept in a little bit. I don't know.
Look, obviously 2020 and 2021 definitely wasn't easy. And I saw just before lockdown, you gave up being a lawyer to pursue the music. How did you keep sane throughout the lockdown, thinking, I'm now pursuing this, I gave up that, and now I can't do anything?
Yeah, it was, look, I was all over the place, and the people that I was working with at that time in the music must have, I don't know how many random ideas I told them about, just to try and find some avenue to to do what I was trying to do. But yeah, it was very difficult, and I think in the end, kind of my philosophy was, well, I just want to be surrounded by people generally that I want to be around in what I'm doing, and I'm passionate about music and the arts, and look, I mean, I'm 42 now, and I don't ever want to be one of those people that hang on to onto the past so much, because there's a youth that also needs space in the airwaves and things like that, and it's important for other artists to come up. So I'm kind of just trying to find my way, how it lands up and what I land up doing, I suppose, is still a little bit up in the air, because it's very difficult. And I mean, I don't know, I kind of feel like at the moment, I don't know how, relevance is a difficult one, at some point, so I probably have to, now moving forward, look at it and go, well, how do I grow my career as I grow with age, because you can't, the wildest people I know, most of them are over 50, and the calmest people I know are under 20, super healthy and stuff, which is the exact opposite. So
actually, you mentioned that. I actually saw an article where there has been this, people have actually noticed that our youth seems to be a lot more calmer and relaxed than us that are in this age bracket, and it's very weird.
Yeah, I think we had a lot of, I get the impression, but then again, look, I mean, I've hung out with a couple bands that are younger now. Certainly, they will certainly drink me under the table because of their age. So I don't want to broadly brushstroke everyone, but I think that there was a little bit more recklessness, I feel at least, and in a lot of things, and people have kind of that's whether it's for good or for worse, or good for creativity or bad for creativity, that's probably a massive debate on its own. But there's certainly been a societal shift and a shift in kind of consciousness and the way people approach life and the way they view how they want to live their lives or be creative. The rule book has kind of been thrown out the window. So, it's an interesting time.
It's an interesting time, yeah.
Yeah.
This
what I can say is we've got a lot of talented people out there, and I think that the one thing that can be said is that there's a lot, if someone is really talented at what they do, there's a lot, that it's possible to get noticed a lot easier than it used to be. And that's kind of exciting, I think.
That's awesome. Obviously, we're here to chat. I'm completely almost forgot. We're here to chat about the new album and the new single. Now, the new single is called Throw Me a Line. Can you tell us a bit more about the song?
Yeah, that song was actually written just after lockdown started. And it was kind of I think the lyrics speak a lot to a lot of what was going on at the time and still going on today, with regards to where we're going with everything. I kind of, the whole thing is kind of reflecting on whether some people are shouting it's the end of the world and some people are saying these are new beginnings, and so I like to think it's new beginnings, and that's kind of what the message of the song is a bit. But Throw Me a Line, the kind of the feeling behind it and the lyrics kind of speak to, like, it's almost like give me a sign, hit me baby one more time.
Tell me, what can we expect from SonOfOld in 2022?
Yeah, man, I'm going to record some more music, definitely, and I'm going to try and play as many concerts as possible. Tom is touring the States a couple times this year with his band, his metal band, and he's also busy with Fuzzy Gish, so we're going to try and squeeze in some shows between all that. And then I'm also going to get back and make a big effort to go and just play acoustic solo shows, same material, but just putting it across differently so that I can get out there and actually play to some places and not into the abyss of the internet. So I'm hoping to be able to sort out some gigs and tours like that. And then I'm doing some music with Matt Wilkinson, who's the other singer of PEREZ. And we actually, it's a weird story, but we're playing as PEREZ in Joburg, I think, in Mpumalanga at that Mealy Pop Festival. And we're kind of throwing in a couple SonOfOld songs there so that I can at least get some of the music out of it. So, yeah, so SonOfOld will be around, probably in different forms, because I can only really perform the album as it is when I've got Tom with me. So yeah, that's kind of what's in the pipeline, and then recording, working on new material for release probably at the end of the year.
And then we can add to that the new EP will be launched on the 4th of March.
Yes, that's on the 4th of March, yeah. So and I'm really excited for that. I think there's I'm very proud of that piece of work. So I'm excited to have that out. Yeah.
Well, we're definitely looking forward to that. And I just want to say, this was a lekker chat. I really enjoyed chatting with you this morning. And thank you for taking the time to chat to us this morning. It's really appreciated.
No, Jaco, thank you. I really, what you do and what you guys are doing is, it does more than you can imagine, because in this day and age, it's hard to find people that are genuinely interested in what you're trying to do. And I can feel that there's genuine interest, which is great.
It's good. It's our pleasure, and all the best with the new EP and for the year, and hopefully the gods will conspire for us to see you guys in PE or Kobega sometimes in the near future.
No, definitely. I'd say sooner rather than later. Yes. I just need to finalize a few dates, and then I'll definitely come through to PE. That's for sure.
Anyways, thank you, Nic. And if that was Nic Olsen from SonOfOld, and up next.